Today I'm going to be going over how I have RainbowMiner set up, and full disclaimer, this is just how I personally have it set up. There are tons of ways that you can set up RainbowMiner, and some ways are simple, all the way to super complex configurations. Mine's more on the simple side, and so let's go ahead and hop on over to my dashboard. Now I do have a client server set up, so what that means is I have one central server that's doing all of the API calls out to the pools, out to the kind of blockchain calculators to figure out profitability, the best coins to mine, and when those times occur. And then on the client side are basically all of my rigs. So some of these are just mini PCs that have, maybe a 6-core CPU in them and leveraging that for mining on the CPU side. Some of these do have a couple GPUs. None of my systems have more than 2 GPUs. So what we're dealing with is a cube rig that has two 3070s, several cube rigs that each have two A2000s in them. We've got a test bench that's got two 5700s. We've got another test bench with 2070. We've got some various machines that we are mining with, and we have set up on RainbowMiner. And one of the things that I do on the GPUs is I don't use overclocking at all. So everything's running at stock clocks. The only thing I have done is I've set a power limit of 150 watts on the 2070s and 3070s. The 5700s I'm letting run full bore because they really don't have that big of a TDP. And the A2000s are power limited to 70 watts. So they're pretty much going to run full bore no matter what anyways. So that's kind of what keeps me more on the simple side. Now if we hop on over to the setup screen, what you'll see if you're not familiar with RainbowMiner is you have all these various options. The basic setup, this is where you define your Bitcoin wallet, things like that. Pools and miners, this is kind of the bulk of the configuration. And this is where you tell it what pools you want to use. And for me, the way I have it set up is I am mining kind of the current most profitable blockchain. We'll get into the switching windows here in a minute. And I am auto converting. So for that, I'm using pretty much all of the auto converting pools. So if you notice, I've got two miners auto exchange. I've got C3 pool. I've got mining Dutch. The individual coins for mining Dutch. Same thing with pro hashing. And then the same thing with Zerg pool and Z pool. I also have an unminable one here. And the one coin that I do mine and hold from a CPU side is a luck pool. Is VRSC. So I have luck pool on here as well. And the rest of this is kind of defaults. We didn't really touch anything here. The overclocking we have turned off because we're kind of handling that manually. The electric cost, you can come in, you can set this. And this will essentially deduct the power draw cost from your profitability figures that it shows you, so you can kind of see what you actually are earning real time if you care about the profitability side of things. And the client server setup, this is kind of where I have everything set up. Right now the machine that I'm on is my server because this is where I manage all of my configs and they push down to all of the clients. So if anytime I need to add a pool or I want to change the coin that I'm auto switching to, I can do that on this server and it'll centrally push down to everything else. And then if we'd like to take a look at the technical section, this is where you can define your intervals of the minimum amount of time that it mines. So this will prevent you from doing constant hopping between different chains. So one of the things I like to do is I like to not hop too much. And it's actually really good with kind of keeping up with profitability and knowing which pools are the best. And you can kind of define those thresholds between hopping. And I've seen it stay on chains for hours at a time, which is really great. I really like that. The one thing I wanted to avoid was hopping to different coins every couple seconds, which just certainly doesn't do that if you configure it properly. So that's kind of what we're looking at here, is how I have that set up. And then there's some additional settings you can set here. If you want to route through a proxy, you can do that. I'm not doing any of that. I'm leaving all of those as the default. But I am doing extended intervals. And then if we hop on over to our coin configuration, this is where you define all of your wallets that you want to hold. So for me, you don't have to have BTC here because it's configured in the main setup screen. But I've got Doge, Litecoin, Avaris, and XMR. XMR will be auto switch to on Monero Ocean and C3 pool. And then I've got Doge LTC and BTC all available for Zerk pool, Z pool, any of those other pools. And then if you hop on over to the setup pool section, what you're going to see is from the drop down at the top here, you're going to see all the pools that you have already configured. Everything else will show at the bottom. And so if we take a look at unminable as an example, we can say I've got my LTC wallet configured in here. And what's going to happen is any wallet that's not the BTC wallet that is furthest down the list, it's going to use. It's going to auto add the prefix that it needs to the unminable address. And it's going to, essentially with this one, anytime it mines to unminable, it's going to auto exchange into LTC. So similarly, if we hop on over to like Zpool, here you can see I also have my LTC address. But under specific, this is where you need to tell it what that auto exchange currency is. So for me, I'm telling it it's LTC. By default, it'll be BTC. And then you can define all the other parameters in here as well. One of the really cool things that I like is you can define the max time to find. So as an example, you could add, I'm not currently doing this, but you could add Zergpool Solo, come in, set the max time to find to, let's say, 5 minutes, and it'll only solo mine coins where you would find the block within 5 minutes. So it's able to look at those expected time to finds and try to kind of hash it that way. And then the other thing is you can define, it's in here somewhere, max allowed luck. So if you want to say that you only want to solo mine blocks where the average luck is less than 100%, you can put that in here and it'll only try to solo mine those. You can also exclude certain coins from solo mining, or you can solo mine just specific coins if you want. So you can define all of those within these pool settings. It's very powerful on what you can do. For 2 miners auto exchange, you can do Nano or you can do BTC. So here you can see I'm just doing BTC. I've let the auto exchange currency blank because it defaults to BTC. But if I was doing Nano, I would just come in, put Nano, hit submit, and then it'll start auto exchanging the Nano. And then I would just come in the coins. I would put $Nano here. And then I would hop on over to the coins section. I would do add new coin. I would do Nano here. And then I'd put in my Nano wallet address. And it will take care of everything else for you. And then if you have a coin defined and it determines that that is the best coin to mine at that point in time, and you're trying to go to like an auto exchange pool, anything like that, it's smart enough to know that it should direct mine that coin because it's defined in your coins list. Instead of, as an example, if VRSC Zerg pool was the most profitable to mine, which typically wouldn't be, you would have like luck pool, but what it'll do is it'll essentially know that you want to hold that coin, and it'll throw it onto luck pool. And so that is really cool as well. And if we hop on over to let's see. If we hop on over to pool earnings, here you can kind of just see a breakout. Now this is going to be in BTC representation. However, on luck pool we were actually earning VRSC, so you kind of have to convert this to yourself. but you can see this is how much we've earned so far on luck pool, and this is kind of gives you that breakout. So if you want to sort by the best pool, obviously Zerg pool and Z pool are kind of those top pools, with luck pool kind of coming in third from a revenue standpoint, and then unminable, C3 pool, nice hash, Monero Ocean, auto convert on 2 miners, and then pro hashing. And then if you kind of want to see that breakout down here for the specific coins, you can do that as well. So if we come down and we see VRSC, we can see that we have earned 6 VRSC mining to luck pool. And then some of the other things we can see here is on the BTC front, we can see, let me sort by currency, and you can kind of see that breakout. So for a while I was mining and converting to BTC. I've recently switched that to LTC. Occasionally I switch them up. Sometimes I'll do DOGE, sometimes I'll do LTC, and sometimes I will do BTC. And when it is mining to pro hashing, I've got pro hashing set up to auto convert to kind of auto diversify, I should say, to DOGE, LTC, and BTC. So essentially what you'll see on pro hashing is we've got BTC, DOGE, and also LTC. So that's something fun that you can do as well. You can do that same thing with mining Dutch, where you can kind of diversify that. The other super cool thing about RainbowMiner is the benchmarking capabilities. So I'm going to hop on over to a different rig because the server I don't actually do any mining on. So let's hop on over to my 3070 rig as an example. So this is a 5950X with a 3070 in it. And you have the ability to benchmark every single miner, every single algo, including dual and triple mining. And it'll spit out your hash rates per algo. It'll also spit out the software power. And this is what it uses to do kind of those profitability checks. So if we take a look at the 5950X, here we can kind of see the breakout of every single algo. So if I sort by algo, and let's sort, let's do OK. These are all of the CPU mineable algos that were successfully benchmarked. And what you're going to see in here is you're going to see multiple rows. So as an example for Yes Power, we've got multiple miners here. So there's a CPU, there's actually 2 versions of CPU miner plus SRB miner, and it has benchmarked all of those. And you can see the RPlant one, not very good. However, SRB miner and the regular CPU miner are kind of on par with their hash rate, around 1.25 and 1.27, and around 40 to 45 watts. Here you can see the RPlant one really didn't benchmark very good. It did a tiny amount of hash rate and a tiny amount of power. And we can kind of see the same thing with VRSC. And by default, it will do physical cores only. And you can go in and you can configure each miner individually. So I've got everything running on 16 cores except for VRSC. VRSC is running on all 32 threads. And that's what kind of jumps up that power, but also jumps up that hash rate. If we take a look at the 3070, what you can see here is you can see a lot of the dual mining coins. So Ergo and Caspa. And you can kind of see it would be, and now I have these cards power limited to 150 watts a card. So most of these are going to be right around 300. But we've got 260 mega hash on Ergo and 470 mega hash on Caspa. These aren't going to be the most optimal clocks, but it allows it to auto switch without having to readjust clocks every time. You can certainly set up the overclocking profiles, but that's when you really start getting into complicated things. Just scrolling through the list, you can see how many different combinations there are. And another thing that I really like about RainbowMiner is, if we sort by algorithm, and we go all the way down to ETH hash, what you're going to see is it actually does testing for 2 gig cards. So these are based on DAG size. So it'll do 2 gig, it'll do 3 gig, once we get down there, or rather 4 gig, and then it'll do 5 gig. And so it is smart enough to know that, hey, I have a 2 gig card. If for example, I put in like an RX 562 gig, or I put in a 750 Ti, then it's smart enough to know it can mine all of these algos. It'll benchmark all of those, but it won't work on any of the higher DAG files. And so when it's auto switching, it's only going to go after the coins that support that smaller DAG file. So it's another really cool feature that it does have built in. And it does benchmark pretty much every algo it knows about. So even as an example here, if you guys know me, I've mined Pigeon a lot in the past, and Pigeon doesn't work on the latest version of T-Rex, but they're smart enough to know that it works on T-Rex 1.9, and that is the version that it benchmarked against. And so there we can see that we got 47 mega hash. Again, these are for 2 3070s, not for a single 3070. So these are always the benchmarks at the complete rig level. And then anytime you want to hop on over to all devices, you can see your devices, and you can expand these and they'll give you some information. So if we expand the CPU, we can see my CPU currently, it's 100% utilization, pulling 109 watts, and the temperature is currently 62 degrees. You can do a similar thing with the GPUs. So if you come down and you look, here we can see that my fan's currently 52%. The temperature was 77 degrees, and the power draw is 151. Again, these are power limited to 150. That's kind of how I have those set up. And you can kind of see, now that is the max. The actual current here is 132, the temp is 72, and the fan speed is 48%. All of my cards are blower style turbo cards, so the fans will be relatively stable. They might seem a little higher than typical, but that's just because they are a blower style. In addition to all of that, you're able to also see your profits in different, essentially currencies here. So if you want to do Satoshis a day, you can see Satoshis a day. If you want MBTC, you can do that. If you want, and this is configurable, you can add any currencies to this list that you want. I just typically do BTC, DOGE, and LTC because those are the main coins that I am auto converting to. Typically, I just monitor everything in MBTC. But like I said, if you want to do Satoshis or if you want to do DOGE, you can see that as well. Earnings is what you actually earned for the past 24 hours. You can see that my total profit, and realistically at real time, I should be getting around 68 per day. But in actuality, I got 304. Again, that's a representation. I'm actually getting Litecoin and Bitcoin right now. But this has jumped. The other day I got like $37 was the US dollar equivalent. But on average, it's like between $15 and $20. It can just, if there's difficulty drops, it will catch them nearly immediately, switch to them, and then auto exchange to the coins that I want it to auto exchange. And at any point, if you don't want it to auto exchange, it really is simple as going back to our server and going to the setup section, going to pools miners, and just unchecking whatever you want. It'll push that config down to the rest of your clients, and then it'll just start direct mining whatever you pick. So if you want to come in here, you can pick whatever you want. And then if there's anything not in here that you want, such as if you're running your own pool, you can go to this JSON editor and drop down, select user pools. and there's kind of like 5 templates in here that are disabled by default. You just come in and you put your host, your port, your wallet. So if it was, let's just say I was running a VRSC pool, I would do $VRSC in here. And it's going to pull in the VRSC wallet. And then you put in the coin name, the coin symbol. If there's a fee, you put in the fee so that you can use that for profitability checks. And then you just specify a name, you set enable to 1, and then that will allow you to use it whenever you're mining. So you can use this to still solo mine to your own nodes if you want. And the other major advantage you have, the way I have mine set up, is I did a fresh Linux install on all my systems, so there's no HiveOS fees. I'm able to leverage all this functionality, still able to mine everything. I've got auto updates turned on, so it's going to auto update when they release new miner updates, and I can kind of manage everything through web dashboards, each individual client as well as the server level, and never really have to worry about HiveOS fees. So this is something that I've been evaluating for a while, and I decided to finally kind of make the jump into it. As somebody who has created Profit Switcher in the past for HiveOS, this is phenomenal from a configuration standpoint. There are so many things that you can do with it. I've been thoroughly impressed. I've been running it now for a few weeks, pretty much full-time a few weeks, and very impressed with how it's working. I really like the ability to kind of prevent it from chain hopping, which was the biggest thing for me. From a blockchain supporter standpoint, I didn't want something that was just going to keep hopping from chains nonstop. And I've been really impressed with how long some of these have been staying on chains. So there you have it. That's kind of how I have things set up. Again, this is me wanting to stack BTC, LTC, DOGE, which is going to be a little bit different than a lot of other people. Obviously, VRSC as well. Everybody knows I'm big on VRSC. But that's kind of the way things are set up for me. There's a million ways you can set it up for yourself. I didn't even touch on the overclock profiles. This is something you can do as well, where you can define several profiles, and it will actually test those profiles when it's benchmarking. You kind of find the optimal profile, and then you can add more profiles if you want, and it kind of tweak the cards. The way I'm running it, I'm not trying to limit the cards on one algo or make it superb on other algos. I'm just kind of letting it do its thing and just setting power limit so that it never goes above that power and the cards will still stay somewhat cool.